All right, let's talk about a very cool and somewhat controversial UFC 247. I got some thoughts about Jon Jones and a emotion that came across his face that I'd never seen before, relief. And we got to talk about that 49-46, right? And all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I'm not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today, I want to talk about UFC 247. I just came straight from the living room to the studio to try to drop this at around 12:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. I took notes here on the legal pad because I wanted to be thorough, or as thorough as I probably could be, through the main card, right? There are no notes here on the prelims. Somebody else probably has you covered on that. I, like many people, bought the pay-per-view because I love this sport. I really, really like talking about the sport. So if you're one of the folks that has obviously clicked the thumbnail, thanks so much for joining in. Please let me know what you thought of the fights in the comments below. Let's get started with Ilir Latifi versus Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis obviously got the home match fighting at Toyota Center in front of a home crowd. He was the ranked number 6 going into this thing. And what I found most interesting about this was that the first round sucked. Two fat guys is what it looked like that were just hugging. You know, I was starting to get sweaty just watching this thing. I'm like, are you guys going to fight or what? And then it started to open up a little bit. Latifi with the takedowns and then splat. Like he would take the takedown and lay still. He could not make a move from Mount. Matter of fact, I did more squirming on my couch from Mount than he did. And that was kind of the thing, right? Because if he was able to do something while on top of Derek Lewis, probably get a different outcome to this fight. And then by the third round, we got Lewis going for broke. Even with the takedowns, he would get up and then start throwing haymakers. I get the hometown crowd was a big factor in this, but it was mostly undisciplined, save the Greco-Romans takedowns from, well, Latifi. And Latifi looked like a dude that was going up in weight, right? Whereas Derek Lewis looked very comfortable. He looked like a guy that had come up just throwing his hands, and if he finds somebody that's got some skill, he's probably going to get dealt with. That means that Stipe probably deals with him. That means that DC would obviously deal with him. Anybody that would be able to put it together on the ground would be able to dispatch Derek Lewis. But big ups to him who told the crowd, yeah, you can buy me 5 shots. I'm not buying y'all nothing. He's at home. Good win for him. Let's see if he can continue to progress. Let's see if he can do something with his ground game. Let's see if Latifi can come back and learn how to work from the ground. Because it's one thing to be able to take folks down. It's another thing to be able to finish them. And that was a theme throughout the night, right? We saw that control seemed to be more important in some cases than others, and striking seemed to be more important in some cases than others. And we move into, 50K, Ige versus Mirsad Bektic. Yeah, I keep saying Bektic's name right. Featherweight fight, right? This was the most interesting fight for me, if for no other reason than Ige looked like he was going to get beat. From the start, we get Ige's faster, he's stronger, he's more accurate. The foot stomps were a little much. I would have rather not seen that, but whatever you got to do. And then in the second round, it's all Bektic. Bektic put him on the ground and went to work. I mean, it was just him on top. And hearing George St. Pierre give big ups to anybody about your top game is better than, or can run with anybody in UFC, is not a small thing. And you could see that. He had complete control from the ground. Ige could do almost nothing. It looked like he was going to get submitted at least twice there. Once in a position where I know that most people would have tapped. Ige did not tap. Comes back in the third round and is able to get good enough strikes, right? While Bektic is able to get control but not good enough strikes. And he ends up winning the split decision. And we saw that the new scoring, as Rogan pointed out, is going to be crucial here because you want to be able to give 10-8 rounds for control, not just for, outstanding knockout type work where you just didn't knock the guy out and it looked like you were just in complete control with your hands. You want to be able to extend that because this is mixed martial arts, right? And many folks will tell you the difference between being a champion and a great MMA fighter is your wrestling. And what is wrestling if not control? mean, if you can submit somebody, great. If you can knock somebody out, great. But if you can control the octagon and you are in the center moving people around, that ought to count for something. And if you're doing it twice as good as the guy you're fighting, that ought to count for an extra point. And I thought that would have helped Bektic out a lot. I also thought that would have meant that he won the fight, but he didn't. 50K Ige gets this one. My big takeaway was obviously that the scoring did not help Bektic in this one, and it might help him going forward because he's outstanding on the ground. I really enjoyed watching that fight. Moving on to Juan Adams and Justin Tafa. Hey, as my buddy Jerry pointed out, do you really want to mess with somebody that's got tattoos like the tap ink? Nah, probably not. He knocked out Juan Adams with 159 left in the first. Goodness me. Juan Adams got trucked by one of the worst. There goes the pin. One of the worst human beings in mixed martial arts. And I get it. You're going to let that dude keep fighting. I don't even want to mention him on the channel. But I felt for Juan Adams because he went back to the drawing board. He got himself a sports psychologist. He was fighting in his hometown of Houston and got dealt with real quick. I mean, we're talking about the two lefts in the clinch, the left hooks, and then, my goodness, it was a right hook and a right uppercut that dealt my man in the first round. Justin Tafa seems like a dude that's on his way up. I'd be interested to see what a fight between he and Derek Lewis would look like. Two guys that are very heavy-handed, and when they land, you hear the thunder. You can actually feel jaws getting crushed in half. I would watch that fight. Then it good. Oh my. Okay. All right. Look, if you thought that Katlyn Chookagian was going to have an opportunity against Valentina Shevchenko, you had not seen Shevchenko fight. You just hadn't. As was pointed out by many, if Katlyn would have beaten Valentina, it would have been one of the biggest upsets in UFC history because Valentina Shevchenko is quite literally one of the best fighters in the UFC, male, female, across divisions, and you saw why, right? Because yes, I get it. She was facing a fighter that had a 4-inch height advantage on her, not so much of a reach advantage, and had long limbs. But it did not matter because Valentina Shevchenko is one of the most technically sound fighters there is out of Kyrgyzstan. Just give the bullet, given the work. And here's the thing. We could talk about how she was able to basically drop homegirl from the start with the slicing elbows toward the end of the first round because you saw that one come. I want to say it was like 15 seconds left. She comes right over the top while she's on top and slices open the top of Katlyn Chookagian's left eyebrow, and you saw blood was pouring out of it, and her trainer kind of lied to her and said that everything was fine. It was obviously not fine because in the second round, homegirl goes for the jump guard. It doesn't work. She's on her feet. Shevchenko says, "Oh, okay, a gift." Puts her on her back and then puts her in a crucifix and starts just dropping these elbow bombs, dropping these just hammers, man. And I got to tell you, if you're not really into UFC or you're not into MMA, getting beat down and KO'd out of a crucifix is like being power bombed in the WWE. It's both wild disrespectful to your opponent and awesome to watch as a spectator. That she was able to pull that off speaks to just how great she is, because crucifix is not the kind of move that you get to just perform on a pay-per-view on somebody because it's usually that much, it's just easier to counter, right? And it's a hero move. It's like a Superman punch. It's like fly a knee. You get away with it, great, right? It's awesome. It makes for great copy and a great promo video, but it ain't the kind of thing that you would try if you've been fighting somebody that knew what they were doing, and yet Valentina Shevchenko did against somebody that knew what she was doing, the number one challenger in the world, and just destroyed her. Whoever the next sacrificial lamb is at 125, I'm sorry about you. You're not going to be able to get past Valentina Shevchenko. What did I write down? I wrote down technically, dexterity, unequivocally, one of the best fighters on earth, Valentina Shevchenko. And then finally, we get to the co-main event, Jon Bones Jones versus Dominick Reyes, all 6'4" of Dominick Reyes. Looks like a football player out there, but he came out fast. He came out furious. He came out like Dom Toretto with the wrench. He looked good, and he looked like he wanted every bit of Jon Jones, right? He's throwing hands. He's moving side to side. He's bobbing and weaving. He's able to land more shots and strikes on Jon Jones than anybody short of Gustafsson, right? And yet Jon Jones was still there. He never looked out of shape. He never looked out of condition. He always looked in control. Going into the second round, I wrote down that Reyes managed to avoid the Jones clinch for a second straight round, which I thought was huge because normally if Jon Jones gets you in a clinch, that's all she wrote, right? He's got you. He's going to take you down and he's going to ride you out. That did not happen to Dominic Reyes. And it was such a big deal because he was able to land more strikes in that second round. Third round, Bones shot. And then Reyes defended. And then Bones continued his relentless pressure. Reyes set a pace that, man, it looked like he could not hold after 3 rounds. And we were kind of right in that. Because the tactic that he was trying to use was just to continue to move. Continue to just move and try to strike whenever possible. Try to kick with Jon Jones to counter those enormously long limbs of his. And going into the 4th round, I'm telling you, he had a lead. He was ahead, right? And then coming out of the 4th round, where it looked like Jon Jones had more control and was better equipped to handle the later stages of the championship rounds. And we were reminded that 6 of the last 8 fights that Jones had been in prior to this one had gone all 25 minutes. You could see how that conditioning was such a big deal. I don't know that it was that Dominic Reyes wasn't prepared to go 5. I just thought that the pace that he set, which was so frenetic and so energetic, was just going to be impossible to sustain. And yet, Jones would shoot and Reyes would get up. I counted 5 shots between the third and the end of the 5th, right, going 22-minute mark of the fight, where Jon Jones shot on Dominic Reyes, and Dominic Reyes managed to get up off the floor and fend off Jon Jones. And it was remarkable. And I thought that perhaps maybe the judges would see Reyes being able to defend those shots being as important as Jon Jones being able to shoot them and perhaps get the takedown. And what we saw was control, octagon generalship, right? Managing, because, Reyes was running from Jones. Jones was pressuring Reyes. Mattered just a little bit more than Reyes being able to land those strikes and then fend off those takedowns. And if you're just watching the fight and you're watching their expressions, Dominic Reyes looked like a man who was trying to get away from Jones more than he was trying to fight him. Jones looked like a man who was just laying in wait like an assassin, just waiting, watching for his time. He would throw the right body kick. He would throw the right jab, and he would connect, and it was clean. Whenever Dominic Reyes was able to connect on Jon Jones, it was rarely clean. It was rarely a shot that Jones just had to eat. And then at the end, when Bruce Buffer is announcing the winners, and you see Jon Jones is retaining his belt, I saw a look across his face I'd never seen before. Relief. He looked like he was just, wow, okay, I got that. And then he had to say to Joe Rogan in the post-fight interview, I believe in my heart I won that fight, which says to me you don't. Because if you have to profess it in the way that he professed it, you know that you probably shouldn't have won that, or at the very least it shouldn't have been that close. And I'm glad that he gave the ups to Dominic Reyes that he did, but you could see that the crowd was very, very friendly to the performance that Dominic Reyes gave. As far as a rematch, I don't see the point. I think it would go a lot like this one went. Reyes would try to get in better shape to try to continue to pressure Jones, but I don't think there's such a thing exists. I don't think you're going to get better cardio than Jon Jones, especially fighting the way that he chose to fight, which was to throw 3 times as many strikes as Jones needed to throw and never once shoot on Jones. Because if you're not going to try to take the man down and you're not going to try to wrestle with him, and you're not because Jon Jones' wrestling is elite, then what are you going to do? You're going to try to stick and move, and you're going to try to hope to get lucky. You're not going to beat Jon Jones that way. You're not going to beat any championship fighter that way. It's the reason we call them championship fighters. You know, if you look around, you'll see Amanda Nunes is much the same way, right? You continue to look around. Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic. You're going to have to either get lucky or you're going to have to out-wrestle them. And you're normally not going to out-wrestle them. You're just going to have to get lucky. All right. Hope that wasn't too long. I'm glad that you rode with me for the entire way. I appreciate it. I like talking MMA. Deuces.